So as I mentioned, welcome to today's webinar. It is called Smart Nutrition. My name is Devin Forbes. I'm the program coordinator with Healthy at Hopkins. Along with being the program coordinator, I am also I'm also a registered dietitian as well as a certified specialist in obesity and weight management. And I just realized my screen. Here we go. So nutrition, it is kind of where my passion really comes from. I really enjoy this webinar, and I hope you get some good takeaways out of today. So before we get started, I kind of just want you to take a moment here and really think, has anyone ever heard about comparing food to fuel in terms of our body? And I should mention along the way, at any time, you can always type in questions. I am going to ask for some engagement, and you can always just kind of type in those question features as well. So there is that old analogy that says gasoline fuel is what helps our cars function. The same goes for food. We want to feed our bodies with the right quality and quantity of food to help us feel better, think our best. So if we require diesel fuel in our car, we won't put regular, or else our car won't perform its best. The same goes with food. So if we're not getting the right mixture of nutrients that our body needs, we might not have the same energy levels or physical or mental performance that we would need to get that ideal performance. So in today's seminar, we are going to talk about the basics for fueling the body well. So that starts with making smart nutrition choices. Everyone's specific nutrition needs are different. However, there are similarities between what nutrients the body likes more of and which the body likes less of. So we're going to be focusing on some of these similarities. We'll learn why more of certain nutrients and less of others can help us feel better in the short term and reduce our risk of chronic disease such as high blood pressure in the long term. We'll discuss tools that you can use to support you in making nutritious choices as well. We'll also be walking through tips and building sustainable eating habits. So the advice provided today is intended for the general healthy adults. If there are any specific medical conditions, we do recommend that you talk to a doctor for any specific needs or concerns there. So just to start off with a general poll question. A nutritious eating pattern focused on vegetables, fruits, protein, mix of whole grains, and healthy fats can help lower the risk for which chronic disease? Is it A, heart disease, B, type 2 diabetes, C, stroke, D, depression, or E, all of the above? You can type your answers right in that questions section there. All right, getting lots of E's, which is right. So all of the above. So this is why we really do want to focus on making those smart nutrition choices, because it can help reduce our risk for many chronic diseases. So we don't get told to eat healthier by our doctors for no reason. There's a lot of research that links poor nutrition to chronic disease and obesity. When we make nutritious food choices, we see the following long-term and short-term benefits. So to kind of start off with those short-term benefits, it can help lower blood pressure and overall improve our blood sugar levels. We may see improved emotional well-being. So when you're able to think clearly, you're able to process information and also manage stress better. You might have more positive self-image. The food-mood connection, if you've ever heard of it, is real. Healthy eating can also be fun. It can be used as a chance to help try new recipes or try new foods from different cultures. So increased energy for work, play, and family. Sugary, highly processed foods can make you feel sluggish after eating, and you can use the energy boost to actually help you accomplish more at work as well. Then some long-term benefits. Sorry, I'm getting some. So if you click, there's a questions feature that you're able to pull from. It should be on the sidebar there when you're looking at the webinar. Like a little arrow that says questions. If you hit that and let it come down, that's where you can type in the answer. If you're still having trouble along, let me know. But some long-term benefits that we're going to see from nutrition, or from making those smart nutrition choices. We're going to see a reduction of chronic disease, as we just kind of talked about with that last question. It could also help reduce our risk for being overweight or obese, and maintaining a higher quality of life as you age. You'll be able to do more compared to others who may have some of these chronic diseases. So you probably have an idea of what healthy eating includes, but not everyone is aware of why our bodies need the foods that they do. Our bodies need certain nutrients that are present in the food that we eat. So nutrients are really the building block of good nutrition. So another kind of poll question here. How many of you have ever heard the term macro or micros before? Sometimes this is used a lot in the fitness community, but if you hear those in real life, they are referring to two different types of nutrients that we need. So has anyone ever heard of this term before? Getting some yeses. Lots of yeses. A couple no's, which is fine, and that's exactly what we hope you take away from this presentation today. So to break it down, we have two different types. We've got macronutrients and micronutrients. So macronutrients are the nutrients that our bodies need in larger amounts. They provide us with energy to fuel our body and maintain health. Micronutrients are nutrients that our bodies need in smaller amounts. So they help our body and our brains function normally, and they help us use that energy properly. So moving forward, we're going to take a deeper dive into these two categories to learn about what the differences are. The recommendations that we're going to focus on moving forward, as I mentioned earlier, are for the general healthy adult. They may differ based on your health status. So if you're working with a doctor or a registered dietitian, have you following a different medical nutrition therapy plan for a specific disease, please discuss and follow their recommendations. So, starting with macronutrients, and these are the nutrients that our bodies need in large amounts, they're broken into three categories: carbohydrates, protein, and dietary fat. So macronutrients provide our bodies with calories or energy. So most foods that we eat fall somewhere between all of these categories. Usually they don't provide all or nothing. So they don't provide only carbohydrates, only proteins, or only fat. Most are combinations of one, two, or all of these. So this makes really getting a balance of nutrients in our diet a little bit easier. So we're going to look at all three of these categories individually, and we'll take some time to focus on how you can incorporate them into your meals and snacks. So starting with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the macronutrient that our body needs the most of, since they are our main source of energy, powering our muscles and our organs. In fact, they're actually the body's preferred source of energy. Carbohydrates are broken down in the body into glucose or sugar, which is then used by our brains and our muscles to think, move, run, and even breathe. Carbohydrates provide us with vitamins and minerals, and certain carbs can also provide us with fiber, which can help make us feel full for longer and help maintain digestive health as well. Fiber is essential for a healthy diet and provides many health benefits. It can improve blood cholesterol levels, it can lower your risk for heart disease, stroke, obesity, and even type 2 diabetes. So as I also mentioned before, it can help make us feel full, so we'll be satisfied with less calories. So how many carbohydrates do we actually need? We actually need about 45 to 65% of our daily calories should be coming from carbohydrates. So this means at least half of all the calories that you eat in a day should be provided by carbs. So to kind of put that in context, for a standard 2,000 calorie diet, about 900 to 1,300 calories would come from carbohydrates. So this would be equal to like 15 to 22 cups of melon. It could be 5 to 7 cups of whole wheat pasta, and also including things like fruit, lentils, can be a source of carb, but there are other foods that contain carbohydrates as well. I did get a question about multiple people watching in the same office. I'm going to give you my email address at the end. Just let me know your names, and I can also, I'll just be making sure you take that link and filling out that survey at the end. And I'll talk about that a little bit later when that link goes out. So sources of carbohydrates, because carbohydrates can be very confusing and there's a lot of misinformation out there. So carbs should be included as a healthy diet. As we mentioned, our body actually needs them to function properly. So the amount of carbs in our diet is less important than the types of carbs that we eat. So we want to focus on including carbs from healthy foods. So we're going to look at the three different ways in which where carbs come from and how they can impact our body. So starting off, our first source of a carbohydrate comes from starches. These are also known as complex carbohydrates. They're found naturally in plants. So they provide us with long-lasting energy since they are digested slower than our simple carbs or our sugars. So foods high in starch include some of your starchy vegetables like potatoes, peas, or corn, other things like beans, and whole grains as well. So for grains, it is recommended that at least 50% of your total daily grains come from whole grains. They contain fiber and vitamins and minerals, more so than your refined grains or your sugar. So this often makes them a little bit more nutritious there. Fiber, we've been talking about it all throughout the presentation so far, is naturally found in all plants. So one of its main functions is that it can help make us feel full for longer and satisfied after eating. It can also help keep our digestive systems regular. So with fiber, our bodies actually cannot digest it. So it passes through the intestines undigested. But before it leaves, one of its functions is that it can bind to cholesterol, taking it out of the body with it. So this can overall help improve our cholesterol levels. Fiber needs, they vary by gender and age. So however, for good health, it is recommended that most adults should aim for 25 to 30 grams of fiber daily. So women need a little bit closer to the lower end, and men, it's recommended to get closer to the higher end of that range. So fiber is often found in foods that also contain starches, like your whole grains, vegetables, the skin of fruits, and legumes, like your beans and nuts. And our last source of carbohydrates often come from sugars. So we have two different types of sugars. We have natural sugar and added sugars. So natural sugars, or also known as simple carbs, these are naturally found in fruit and dairy. However, they can also be added to foods during processing, such as with baked goods. So simple carbs provide us with a quick energy. It often has a faster blood sugar boost since they're digested at a faster rate in the body. So simple carbs that are found in fruit, they should be included in a healthy diet since they do provide us with many vitamins and minerals, and fruits can also give us fiber. So our natural sugars, a little bit different than our added sugars because they are found naturally in food products. So our refined grains, that's things like your white bread, they are a little bit less nutritious than those complex carbohydrates or your whole grains because they've actually had their fiber and their nutrients removed during processing, and that's why they're digested at a faster rate. Then you have added sugars, and these are often found in things like baked goods or sodas. They often have no nutritional value other than just plain calories. So these are often linked to weight gain, heart disease, and other chronic diseases if consumed in excess. So we're going to discuss this a little bit more on the next slide. So water supplement, I have a question. Are water supplements okay to use, such as Crystal Light or any of those drops? I kind of leave it to a personal preference, but it is a really good way to kind of just focus on hydration. It's always better to kind of limit any type of added sugar coming from those beverages because that's often where we do tend to go over our calories in the day. So kind of taking a little bit deeper look when it comes to making smart carb choices. What you want to focus on, like we said, our body needs carbohydrates, so really try to make them come from complex carbs and carbs that are high in fiber. So this is where you're going to get that slower, more lasting form of energy, like your whole grains, your vegetables, beans, legumes, and even a little bit from fruit because we're getting fiber from the skin and the pulp. They're nutrient rich, even though technically they are sugar. What we want to limit in our carbohydrate choices are the refined carbs and added sugars. So they give us that quicker form of energy. They often lack fiber and nutrients, and they can lead us to feel hungry again sooner. So these are like your white bread, your white pasta, cookies, candies, cakes, things like that. When it comes to sugar, the American Heart Association recommends no more than 9 teaspoons or about 150 calories of added sugars per day for men, and no more than 6 teaspoons or about 100 calories of added sugar per day for women. So sugar is a preservative. It can be present in packaged foods, even if you wouldn't expect it, just because it can help extend that shelf life. So always make sure you're reading the nutrition facts labels to see how much sugar you're getting. And we're going to discuss nutrition facts, the fact panel, a little bit later in this presentation as well. So then moving on to protein. Proteins are the building block of our body since they provide us with amino acids that are used to build up our cells. Our whole body is made up of cells, so this goes to show how important protein is for us. Our hair, nails, blood, muscles, nerves, and hormones, they're all made up from proteins. Our bodies cannot make all of these amino acids on its own. So that's why it's so important to make sure we're getting enough protein from our diet, from appropriate sources, to make sure that we're giving our muscles, our body, the protein so that it can function properly. Protein also plays a role in helping us feel full for longer after our meals, as it has a higher satiety or fullness satisfaction level, and this can help better maintain our weight over time as well. So how much protein do we actually need? The National Academy of Science recommend that we consume about 10 to 35% of our calories from protein. So for a general healthy individual, this averages about 46 grams a day for women and about 56 grams a day for men. So for reference, a 4-ounce piece of chicken or 1 cup of tempeh, which is a plant-based protein, it comes out to about 30 grams of protein right there. So meeting your protein needs is actually a little bit easier than some people may think. So some people assume that protein only comes from animal sources, or that getting protein as a vegan or a vegetarian can be difficult, but there are some plant-based sources as well. So we can get protein from things like beans and lentils, whether it's chickpeas, black beans, split peas, nuts and seeds, so peanuts or peanut butter, almonds, sunflower seeds. Our whole grains have some protein in there as well. So things like quinoa, oatmeal, farro, brown rice can be good sources of protein. Soy, like edamame, tofu, can also be a really great source there. And then you do have your animal proteins, such as your meat, fish, poultry, seafood, eggs, and even a little bit of dairy. So when it comes to choosing protein and what we want to incorporate in our diet, you do want to look for that variety to get all those different amino acids. So really try to get a mix of different nutrients. Can focus on some of those plant-based proteins and really trying to incorporate that variety in there. When it comes to animal proteins and what you want to limit, really kind of focusing on red meats or processed meats. We have found that most Americans consume too many animal proteins and not getting enough of that balance, including plant proteins in there as well. So your red and processed meats, they tend to be really high in saturated fat. Your processed meats, these are things like your sausages, ham, hot dogs, are often high in salt as well. So in 2016, the World Health Organization actually linked red and processed meats to an increased risk of colorectal cancer. So the dose does matter, and the more red and processed meat consumed, the greater the risk is there. So as we kind of transition into our last macronutrient, which is fat, I'm going to start off with this question. So true or false, foods that are high in fat often lead to weight gain? This is a good question because I'm getting a lot of mixed answers, which is one of the great things I love about this. So I'm getting a really good mix of true and false. So I'm going to kind of start off by saying this answer is actually false. So high-fat foods do not necessarily lead to weight gain. However, they are higher in calories than protein or carbohydrates, so it could have an impact if you eat large quantities instead of that fair balance. So to kind of break it down, each gram of dietary fat has about 9 calories, while each gram of protein and carbohydrates contain 4 calories. So our bodies actually need some fats to function, but it runs based on healthy fats. So we're going to kind of go through the breakdown of healthy fats versus non-healthy fats, but it really kind of goes back to creating that fair balance and kind of hitting all those different nutrients, but it doesn't necessarily mean that fats are going to lead to weight gain. So fats actually have a lot of important health benefits. It helps keep our skin and our hair strong. It helps us actually absorb. There are certain vitamins that need fat to be absorbed properly. It can protect our organs from injury. It can help insulate us to keep us warm, and it does assist with brain development. So when it comes to how much fat we actually need in the diet, the National Academy of Sciences recommends that fat make up about 20 to 35% of our total calories. But there are different types of fats, and that's where we want to focus on how we incorporate them in our diet. So starting with unsaturated fats, these are actually our healthy fats. Most times unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature. There are different types of unsaturated fats. So there are monounsaturated fats. These are found in things like avocados, olive oils, your peanut butter, some nuts as well, like almonds. And then there are polyunsaturated fats. So these are found in things like tahini or like sesame seed paste, sunflower oil, soybean oil. There are actually two different types of polyunsaturated fats, and it's our omega-3 fatty acids. So we've got ALA, which is mostly found in plant sources like flax seeds, walnuts, chia seeds, and then there's DHA, which comes from our animal sources like salmon or tuna, some of those fatty fishes. So our brain actually needs those omega-3 fatty acids to function properly. So these are some of the types that we do want to focus on incorporating in our diet. Then we have our saturated fats. These are also known as the unhealthy fats. These are often solid at room temperature. So a good way to kind of remember that is saturated is solid. These come from your really fatty animal proteins, such as like the poultry skin, fatty beef, butter, cheese, or even things like your palm oils, coconut oil. Thinking about anything that's solid at that room temperature is going to have that source of saturated fat. There are also trans fats. So these are also known as unhealthy fats, and they are made by turning healthy oils into solid to keep things from going bad. So they often extend the shelf life on products, so you may see them in things like packaged cookies, pastries, or baked goods. So these are a really good way to identify what a trans fat, if something has a trans fat, is oftentimes you'll see on the ingredient list the words partially hydrogenated oil, oftentimes is an indicator that there's trans fat in that product. So when it comes to meeting our fat needs within our diet, we want to focus on getting them from those unsaturated fats and limiting our saturated and trans fat intake. So who knows why we want to focus on these different types of fats, what we want to get more of and what we want to limit? So the reason why we kind of want to focus on this is that our unsaturated fats, like our mono and polyunsaturated fats, these are often found to play a big role in our cholesterol levels. So our unsaturated fats are often found to decrease the LDL, or what's also known as the bad cholesterol, and also our triglyceride levels, and they can actually increase the good cholesterol, which is our HDL. So overall, we can see improvements in our blood cholesterol levels if we incorporate more healthy fats into our diet. This can play a big role in reducing our overall risk for heart disease when we incorporate these in our diet here. Why we want to limit saturated fats is that they actually have the complete opposite effect. So these are the fats that have been found to increase that bad cholesterol. So for saturated fats, it is recommended to limit at least less than 10% of our total calories coming from saturated fat. So that's about no more than 200 calories from saturated fat if you're looking at that standard 2,000 calorie diet. Trans fats, they actually have that same effect. They can lower our good cholesterol and increase our bad cholesterol as well. These trans fats also increase inflammation in the body, which has that stronger link to heart disease as well. So there's actually no safe level of consumption. Overall goal is to keep trans fat intake as low as possible. So taking a look at this slide here, we're going to just take a few minutes. I want you to think about some combos that we could do to make a healthy, balanced meal. So you see some options from carbohydrates, protein, and fat, all our three main macronutrients. I'd love to hear what you guys come up with. You can type it in. What kind of combo would you put together to hit all these three different macronutrients and create that balanced meal there? So I see whole wheat toast, peanut butter, chia seeds. I like that one. Two people actually gave that answer. Whole wheat toast, peanut butter, sunflower seeds. Ooh, roasted veggies, black bean, and avocado. That one sounds good. So I'm definitely saying a lot with the peanut butter toast. And then, yeah, throw in some seeds can be a really great way to add in that little extra healthy fat. So I really like those ideas there. So those were our macronutrients. We're now going to kind of shift gears into our micronutrients as well. So as we discussed, our micronutrients, these are the ones that our bodies need in smaller amounts. Does anyone have any idea what is included in micronutrients? So as you can see there's actually two different types. Micronutrients are broken down into our vitamins and our minerals. So there are many different vitamins and minerals to talk about, but today we're really going to be discussing the ones that the dietary guidelines say we're at a highest concern for the average adult, which means we're actually not getting enough of them, or on the opposite, we're getting too much of them. So there are two types of vitamins. There are fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins need to be consumed along with a fat source in order to be properly absorbed and used by the body. So excess amounts can be stored in the body's fat stores. As opposed to our water-soluble vitamins, these can be absorbed in the body without fat. If we get too many of these, they cannot be stored, and they're usually removed from the body when our body does not need them. So you may see a lot of these on the label. Just know that they all fall into that vitamin category. So minerals, they're the other type of micronutrient. So just like there are macro and micronutrients, there are also major and mineral trace, or major and trace minerals. There we go. So major minerals are the ones that we need in larger amounts. Trace minerals, they're needed in those smaller amounts. So again, it is best to meet your needs for these minerals through the diet first, before you consider supplements. Supplements can actually be absorbed a little bit differently than finding them naturally in foods, and actually sometimes they provide us with much larger amounts than we actually need. So this can be equally as much of a problem if we get too much as it would be if we didn't get enough as well. So taking a deeper look at some of the micronutrients of concern. Someone did ask, what is the average amount of sodium needed per day? It's about, the recommendation falls about 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. So when we're looking at some of these nutrients, the ones that we want to be concerned about that research often finds we're not meeting the markers for, included in that is vitamin D, calcium, and iron. So these are the ones that you really do want to pay attention to on the nutrition label to make sure you're getting that, prioritizing and making sure you're getting enough. So why we want to focus on vitamin D? One of the best ways to actually get vitamin D is to go outside. Sunlight forms vitamin D when it contacts the skin, and this is actually how most vitamin D is obtained. Food sources, they include a variety, such as some mushrooms actually have some vitamin D in there, animal products like seafood, eggs, or dairy. And then vitamin D can also be added to products. Some dairy, cereals, and juices even have it. So vitamin D works in the body along with calcium to help strengthen bones, but it also plays a big role in muscle function, immune function, and even our mental health. So calcium is also vitamin D's friend here, so which is why we want to make sure we're getting enough calcium in our diet as well. Calcium, really well known, important for building up our bones and keeping them nice and strong. So it actually helps delay our bone loss as we age. Calcium can keep our teeth strong, and it helps make our muscles contract and move normally. So it helps transmit nerve signals throughout the body. Calcium can be found in foods like dark leafy greens, tofu, almonds, beans, and some fortified foods like your orange juice or even non-dairy milks there. And then iron. Iron is found in foods like beans, leafy green vegetables, dark chocolate, or even some fortified cereals and rice. It is also in some animal products, but iron is needed to make hemoglobin, which is a protein in our body that helps carry oxygen throughout the bloodstream. So it also helps us make myoglobin that helps transmit that oxygen into our muscles. So without enough iron, a person often feels fatigue, weak, dizzy, or may even have headaches. So iron also plays a role in helping our cells grow and function normally. So our bodies sometimes have a harder time using iron from those plant sources, but if you actually pair iron with a little bit of vitamin C, it helps better absorb it. So if you're having that spinach salad, maybe just throw in some orange slices, get that vitamin C. It can help absorb that iron a little bit better. Potassium, also another nutrient that we might need a little bit more of in our diet. And then sodium is one that we may get a little bit too much of. So potassium, it's not just in bananas. It can also be found in fruits, vegetables, nuts, and even seeds. So it is recommended to get like 7 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, and this can be a really great way to make sure you're meeting those potassium needs. Potassium helps to limit our sodium's blood pressure raising effect, and it can also help with muscle health and hydration. It is an electrolyte. So sodium, as someone asked about earlier, or also known as salt, it is found naturally in small amounts in most foods, even in fruits and vegetables. However, sodium is also added in larger quantities to many food products. You'll find it in things like bread, cheese, a lot of your processed meats, sauces, or soups. Because it is a preservative, it can extend that shelf life. So we need sodium to survive, as it is required for many reactions in our body. It is also needed to help keep our blood pressure high enough to circulate oxygen throughout the body. Sodium, we need it to help our muscles and nerves function properly as well. However, as mentioned, we often see an increased intake in packaged or processed foods containing more sodium than we actually need. So most Americans have been found exceed the daily recommendation for sodium. So sodium, when consumed in too much, it absorbs water in the body. So extra sodium can hold in more fluid, which can actually increase our blood pressure. So high blood pressure is one of those risks for heart disease. So we do want to pay attention to that nutrition facts label to make sure we're staying within those sodium recommendations. So now that we've kind of discussed general nutrition recommendations, a little bit of Nutrition 101, let's kind of put this into practice and let's learn some tools that we can use to help us stay on track towards our goal. So we now have MyPlate. Has anyone ever heard of MyPlate before? Getting a lot of yeses, which is great. So MyPlate is a resource that's out there to help you achieve a healthful, balanced plate. It replaced the food pyramid back in 2011, and it is now there to help guide us toward a varied plate containing all the different food groups. So instead of specifying a certain amount of cups or servings of each food, now has ratios to make it a little bit easier to know how much of each food group to include at each meal. So to start off, one of the easiest ways is to start just by making half your plate fruits and vegetables. When you're looking at grains, we do want to try to make 50% of our grains whole, should make up about a quarter of that healthy plate, and then a lean protein source making up that final quarter. While dairy doesn't need to be included at all meals, if you want it, you can add it in a small portion as that extra. Healthy fats should also be included in moderation as well. So the MyPlate website provides resources on healthy eating tips and tricks. They have general information on the food groups and tips on how to make those nutritious choices as well. They also have MyPlate, My State, which is really cool because this shares what foods are local to different states. And these local produce items may be ones that you can find at a cheaper rate since they don't have to be transported across the country. You can also use the What's Cooking USDA Mixing Bowl. It's a really great database to find some healthy recipes. Or the Let's Talk Trash campaign provides information on helping reduce food waste. So this can help you with tips on using foods that you purchase before they go bad. You can also find a variety of information, recipes on the Healthy at Hopkins portal under that My Nutrition tab. So we're going to kind of look into that nutrition facts label. So taking a look at this question, which of the following nutrients is not listed on a nutrition facts label? Is it vitamin B12, fat, dietary fiber, calcium, or iron? So I got dietary fiber, B12, fat. So we're getting a mix of answers. The actual answer to this is A, vitamin B12. So let's take a closer look. So what you're seeing here are two different labels. This nutrition fact label is found on all packaged foods, and it can really be a great tool in helping us guide our food choices. It's intended to help Americans meet some of the nutrients recommended that we talked about earlier. However, the nutrition fact label, it can be a bit tricky to understand if you're not familiar with it. So we have just had a new proposed nutrition label, And food companies are now in the process of changing over their nutrition facts label from the old version, which is what you see on the left-hand side here, to the new version, which is on the right. So originally these transitions were supposed to be completed by July of 2018, but with some back and forth, now all companies won't officially make that change until January of 2021. But some have already taken that initiative, and you may see both labels out there, which is why we wanted to put both on the slide. So I love nutrition fact labels. I really think they can give you a great idea of what you're actually eating in that food product. So you'll see all the macronutrients are on there. You're going to find your carbohydrates, your fat, and your protein amounts. Some labels even go a little bit further into describing where that fat comes from, such as saturated or monounsaturated. The biggest thing that you're going to see on this nutrition label also comes with that sugar. So now it's going to be mandatory for food products to identify how much natural sugar is in there versus how much added sugar is in there. So it can be a really great way to become more familiar with your added sugar intake and trying to reduce it. Other things you'll find on this nutrition facts label are the serving size and the serving per container. And this is really important to look at, realizing that if you eat an entire container, it doesn't just mean it's one serving. So for example, this label here has 8 servings per container. So whatever it may be, if you were to eat the entire container, you'd have to multiply all of these numbers by 8 because that's how much you've actually consumed. So paying a closer attention to what the actual serving size is and how many servings are in that container to give you a better idea of what the actual intake of that food product is. You'll also take a look at those nutrients. We're now going to start to see vitamin D is mandatory on the nutrition label. You'll also find your recommendations, your intake for calcium, iron, and potassium as well. And you will see under carbohydrates, it is broken down on where those total carbs are coming from. It'll show you how much fiber you're getting, and as I mentioned, that sugar as well. Working one-to-one with a nutrition expert can also help you with setting goals. So the best person to work with on specific nutrition goals is going to be a registered dietitian nutritionist. RDNs will often have, you'll see the title behind their name, either RD or RDN. They have a minimum of a 4-year college degree in nutrition, and they've also completed a 1,200-hour dietetic internship, as well as passing a national registration exam and completing ongoing education. So many RDs have additional certifications or degrees to help provide them with further expertise in a certain area. If people call themselves nutritionists, they could very well be an RD, but they could also be someone who's taken just a single nutrition class. So the term nutritionist is not regulated. So when it comes to seeking and looking for help, you want to make sure you're looking for those credentials, whether it's an RD or an RDN there. Your doctor may also be able to provide you with some recommendations. But if you're looking on where you can find a local RD, you can look on the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website. It's at www.eatright.org. You'll be able to find the tab there that says Find an Expert. It's a great search engine that can help. You can type in your zip code and it'll show you people locally within your area. Some often go into further detail about where their expertise are if there's a certain area of nutrition you're looking for help in. You can also get nutrition coaching if you have EHP benefits through our EHP coaches and other on-site options as well. And we have many nutrition resources under the Healthy Initiatives resource on that Healthy at Hopkins portal. There are many apps out there. They become a mainstream source of food and nutrition information. So many different apps out there. There are ones that are used specifically to help you track food intake. There are some that you can use to kind of get an idea. They grade food choices, and you can see if this maybe is a great food choice or not so much. Others can really help create that balanced diet, or even there's some focusing on hydration as well. So lots of different ways we can use technology to help us in our nutrition choices. So thinking about moving forward, maybe you're starting to get an idea of what goes into making those smart new choices, and now you're really motivated into taking a look at your dietary pattern a little bit differently. So the wheels are turning, but now it's time to think about how we can turn those ideas into actions or make them long-lasting habits. So a couple areas to focus on. One, I can't stress this enough, is to start when you're ready. Readiness to change is a key thing to consider before setting behavior goals. So thinking to yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready are you to change this habit of interest? So, and then on that same scale, how confident are you that you can make this change and really sustain it? So starting to ask yourself some questions, thinking about, am I ready to maybe start looking at my nutrition choices a little bit different? If your answer on the scale of 1 to 10 is under 5, maybe there's another change you're actually more ready to make at this time. Maybe you just need a little bit more information to know how this change could work for you. If you're between that 5 or 6, you might think, yes, this change is a good idea, but you're not quite ready to get started. You might be unsure of how to overcome those roadblocks to getting started, or could be questioning if the pros of this change are outweighing the cons. So maybe with a little bit more support, more information, you might be ready to make that change within the next 6 months or so. And then if you're at that 7 to 10, you know you're ready to take action towards your change, and you're ready to create that plan and set those goals at some point, maybe within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So kind of always addressing where you're at that scale and thinking about what would it take for you to maybe take that 5 and bump it up to that 7 or 8, or maybe even a 9 or 10 there. So for change to be sustainable, make sure you're starting with what you're ready for. So don't rely on friends, family, or coworkers to tell you what you're ready for, because that's something you determine on your own. Only you can know that. So making sure that change aligns with your overall wellness vision, or your vision on what's best for yourself or what your life would look like. So for some, this wellness vision may just mean being able to be fully active with their kids. For others, it may be meaning excelling and moving up in their career. So think about wherever you're at this time, what your overall wellness goal is, and then start thinking about that change from there. It is also important to start brainstorming some backups. We never know when unexpected things may come our way. We can't control what other people do. Sometimes in the case of catching a cold, for example, we can't even control how our body feels. So it's only natural for us to encounter these roadblocks from time to time. We can prepare for the occasional late work day, sick child, auto shop repair by brainstorming backups. And there are also some alternative actions we can do even if they weren't our original plan. So say, for example, you planned on Sunday to kind of chop up all this fresh fruit and have it ready for the week, but then you had friends or family stop by. Maybe you can change that into buying pre-cut fruit, something that doesn't need as much preparation instead. Or maybe it's kind of having a backup meal or recipe on hand in case your week gets away from you. But really having that flexible mindset can help you from becoming discouraged and keep you on those goals. And then revisit and revise. So you do have permission to change your mind at any time. You're not stuck making oatmeal until the end of time when you'd rather have a smoothie for breakfast. So being flexible and understanding with yourself and treating yourself with the same kindness that you would a friend. So it can be helpful to check in with yourself at regular intervals. Make sure, one, you're still even enjoying what you're doing, or what you're doing is actually supporting your wellness vision and keeping you moving towards those goals. If it's no longer helping you or you're feeling bored or stuck, it may be time to revisit and think about what change needs to be added in there. If your wellness vision has changed, that's okay. We adjust those goals from there. So thinking forward, just for time purposes, but this is something that you can do on your own, asking yourself those questions. So what is one healthy nutrition behavior that you want to start? And on that scale of 1 to 10, how ready are you for that change? Thinking about what may get in the way in there. Plan for those backups to help kind of prevent that roadblock from happening. And maybe set a goal. How often are you going to check in with yourself to make sure that you're still on track with that progress? So I hope you took away something from today's webinar. As I mentioned, this advice is intended for general healthy adults, but there are many different tips and tricks that you can do in there. I'm going to take any questions. Oh, I saw someone say they're going to start food prepping. That is great. Even if it's just taking away one thing, I know we talked about many different areas, but just thinking about your place to start and moving forward, one step at a time, can get you towards those smart nutrition goals. All right, So for those participating in the 2019 rewards program, this as a reminder, this webinar was incentivized. So I'm going to now send you a link to the web form questionnaire. I'm going to go through that, and then you can fill out the link to get those points.